All the jails in the world and all the executions in the world will not make that situation right. We can either educate or electrocute. We can create meaningful jobs, rebuilding our society, or we can build more jails.
One of my favorite things about Bernie Sanders is that he has receipts. He has been railing against criminal justice and the two-tier justice system we have in the country. That was him in 1994, speaking out against the crime bill. And he has proposed his version of criminal justice reform this week. Elizabeth Warren also did. And so we're gonna do a deep dive into their proposals. I wanna start off with Bernie Sanders. He released his proposal yesterday. And according to his campaign website, when Bernie is president, we will finally make the deep and structural investments to rebuild the communities that mass incarceration continues to decimate. We must move away from an overly punitive approach to public safety and start focusing on how to safeguard our communities, prevent the conditions that led to arrests, and rehabilitate people who have made mistakes. So let's go through the bullet points. And I just wanna be clear in saying that both proposals are sweeping, comprehensive. You could literally do a 3-hour show on these proposals. But I'm gonna give you bullet points and elaborate as much as I can. So one thing he would like to do, and I love this, is ban for-profit prisons. Boom.
Yes.
You gotta go, right? So
period.
There should not be any type of profit model when it comes to incarcerating people. This has led to mass incarceration, and I love the fact that he would do away with them. He also wants to make things like prison phone calls and other communications such as video chats free of charge. Many of these prisons will either work with third-party companies, or if it's a private prison, there's a monetary incentive to charge the inmates when they want to make phone calls to their family members. In this case, Bernie Sanders would make the calls free.
Can I just say, that might sound like a minor issue to you guys, but that's because you don't have a family member in prison. Some of the prisons make the inmates work, and you know what they pay them? $1 for a whole day of work. Not per hour, which would already be outrageous, for a whole day of work. And then when they go to make a phone call, it's $1 per minute. So you can't ever talk to a loved one. It's, that's the crime. The way that they are ripping off all the most powerless people in the country and then how did they get in prison? Some of them deserved it, some of them for smoking pot. This is a racket, and they're gonna end the racket, both Sanders and Warren.
He also would like to audit the practices of commissaries and use regulatory authority to end price gouging and exorbitant fees. So when I say that these proposals are sweeping, I mean it. I mean, he's talking about the way inmates are treated. He has proposals to do away with the mass incarceration this country's been dealing with for decades now. He focuses on police and how police should not be the first responders when there's someone suffering from some sort of mental health issue. It's just so comprehensive and so wonderful to see someone who has thought through these issues in a smart way.
Real quick on that, I had a guest on the show that talked about that recently. Look, you start sending cops after people, and what do we teach the cops? We teach the cops, get the situation under control, use overwhelming force, etc. But people called because they said, my family member is sick, and he's schizophrenic or he has an issue. And then they come and bust the guy's head open. Well, that doesn't help anybody. Then it makes people reluctant to call the cops. Why don't we, I know it's a radical idea, send a medical person to handle a medical situation? That's considered radical. No, it's common sense. We just don't do it. It's crazy that we don't do it. So this is long overdue.
So let's move on to some of the other parts of his proposal. He wants to incentivize states and localities to end police departments' reliance on fines and fees for revenue.
Oh God, this is so good.
This is incredibly good. By the way, I also want to mention the issue of civil asset forfeiture. This is one of the ways that underfunded police departments raise money for themselves. So if an individual is suspected of being part of some sort of drug trafficking deal or whatever it is, they will, without any real evidence, take that individual's property and cash and say that it's part of an investigation. And the vast majority of individuals, even after this case has been adjudicated, will not get that back.
95% never get their property back, whether they were guilty or innocent. And why do they do this? Because they lower taxes on the rich, so they have no money left. So they go and they do fines and fees on poor and middle class people, and then they do civil asset forfeiture. So it's a way of saying, well, let's redistribute the wealth and take everything from the people who don't have it because we already gave tax cuts for the rich. Imagine ending all that injustice. That would be amazing.
Now, one of the issues with our current justice system is that there is a profit motive when it comes to some of these prisons. And I just want to note that there's something kind of missing from the conversation, and it has to do with prison guards and the unions that represent them. So yes, for-profit prisons should be the #1 priority. We need to get rid of them. But when it comes to publicly run prisons, there's also an issue with the unions representing those prison workers pushing for tough on crime legislation. So we need to find a way to mitigate that as well. And to be fair, that conversation is missing from both proposals. But with that said, they are incredible and definitely sweeping proposals. He'd like to remove the profit motive from our re-entry system and diversion, community supervision or treatment programs, and ensure people leaving incarceration or participating in diversion, community supervision or treatment programs can do so free of charge.
Actually trying to help people. I know it's a radical idea. Joe Biden would say, why not crush them? Joe Biden bragged that in that 94 crime bill that you saw in the beginning, Bernie Sanders railing against, that it would give, the 91 bill originally, Biden said, it would give everyone death sentences except for jaywalkers. There was, I think, 61 counts that would give the death penalty in Biden's 91 bill, and then the 94 crime bill passed.
He'd like to ensure accountability, strict guidelines, and independent oversight for all federal funds used by police departments and federal programs that provide military equipment to local police forces. So, he brought up the issue of militarized police forces. I love that he did that. It's a real issue. I mean, there's no reason why a police department needs military grade weaponry when it comes to policing their community. Let's go to the rest of it. He also wants to create a federally managed database of police use of deadly force.
God forbid you should ever investigate anything. So he's gonna say, look, let's at least look at it, see if it's a real problem or not. And of course, Republicans are like, no, don't look at the information, that would be terrible.
Provide grants for states and cities to establish civilian oversight agencies with enforceable accountability mechanisms. So he wants real systemic change when it comes to holding police departments accountable with real civilian input, which is important. Also establish federal standards for the use of body cameras, including establishing third-party agencies to oversee the storage and release of police videos. That's also important. Far too often, there's video, body cam video missing. The individual, the cop, did not turn the body camera on or turned it off right before there was some sort of altercation with a suspect. So I love this, and his language, to be fair, is a little clearer when it comes to body cameras. I think he goes further because he would make it mandatory for all cops to use body cameras. In Elizabeth Warren's plan, she wants to expand the program. So add more funding to it, expand it. But based on the language in her post about it, it doesn't seem like it would be mandatory.
Yeah, look, they're both wonderful plans. And I actually think we still haven't gotten to the best parts. But Bernie does go a little further on a couple of issues. And to expand on that, look, the problem with local cops and local prosecutors judging themselves is they all work together every day. So it's like saying, okay, tell me if Anna did something wrong. Well, I mean, I'm friends with Anna. I work with her every day. No, if there's a charge that happened, it should be removed to a federal authority that is not working with them daily. Whether it's the tapes or it's the prosecutors, the investigation, the database, makes perfect sense.
He'd also like to mandate criminal liability for civil rights violations resulting from police misconduct, and also ban the use of facial recognition software for policing. I love that. There's also new technology that would use algorithms to determine whether or not someone is likely to commit a crime. And he even mentions that in his proposal and mitigating the negative impact of that type of technology. So he is very clear about that. Now, when it comes to police, he also mentions, look, police are overstressed, overloaded, overworked. And part of the reason why is because there are municipalities that are relying on local police to deal with mental health issues, with all sorts of issues that they're not trained for, that isn't even appropriate given their job titles. So what he wants to do is create a system in which you have the appropriate first responders who would respond to someone who might be having some sort of mental health condition or issue at that moment. I love that idea. It's perfect, and I think that it makes way more sense to have someone who's trained to deal with someone who's suffering from a mental health issue, as opposed to calling a cop who might, escalate the situation. And in a lot of cases, we've seen someone die as a result of that. Let me give you one more statement, by the way, by Bernie Sanders. He says, "We ask police officers to address every societal issue that results from the tears in the fabric, whether it be mental illness, addiction, homelessness, or poverty. We ask these overstressed police officers to fill roles they are not trained or equipped for, doubling as social workers, conflict negotiators, and medical responders. Last year, more police officers died of suicide than in the line of duty."
That's a really interesting point. I didn't even know that.
Yes.
All right, by the way, now there's also more massive issues: stop and frisk, ending cash bail, ending solitary confinement. Nobody talks about solitary confinement. It's torture, and we just do it regularly, all the time, without blinking. It's inhumane what we do. International bodies should put penalties on us for how much we use solitary confinement. It is considered torture in most countries, and we do it willy-nilly to so many of our prisoners. It's outrageous. I love that they're thinking about that, both Warren and Sanders. And then finally, marijuana. So the difference here is Elizabeth Warren wants to decriminalize and Bernie Sanders wants to legalize. And so I think legalizing is the correct thing, because when you decriminalize, they're like, well, you can't legally sell it, you can just legally buy it. I always find that completely irrational. So what are we doing? What are we doing? So you still have drug dealers. Don't get me wrong, decriminalizing is a billion times better than what we have now, where we have the Gestapo going around and the millions of people we've imprisoned for drug possession in this country, which is just based on marijuana. It's an absolute outrage. So Warren's plan is terrific, a million times better than what we have now and what others are proposing. Biden's like, well, I'm thinking of moving marijuana to a Schedule II drug. Ooh, wow, big change. Maybe 100 years from now, we might go towards decriminalization. No, end it. It's like having a beer. We're still having this conversation. Look, guys, if all you cared about was winning, 65% of Americans want to legalize marijuana. 65%. If you live in a democracy, it's not complicated politics. So the stupid old Democratic establishment way of thinking is you don't want to go soft on crime. You want to show Republicans you could break backs and be totally unfair and unjust to people as well, especially minorities. And then Biden will go brag about his poll numbers with African Americans, right? No, the reality is Americans are sick of this. It's both the right thing to do policy-wise, and it's also good politics.
So look, their policies for the most part are very similar. There are minor differences. There are some differences when it comes to language, but since we just talked about the legalization of marijuana, I want to go to graphic 10 and read a little bit from Elizabeth Warren's proposal, because she has a very fascinating take when it comes to who we should go after when it comes to drugs. I've proposed a new criminal negligence standard for executives of corporations with more than $1 billion in annual revenue when their company is found guilty of a crime or their negligence causes severe harm to American families. Instead of locking up people for nonviolent marijuana crimes, I've proposed putting pharmaceutical executives on the hook to report suspicious orders for controlled substances that damage the lives of millions. So when it comes to the opioid epidemic, one of the issues was that there were these middlemen who would order, large quantities of the drugs, and then they would go ahead and ship those drugs to super questionable, shady pharmacies that would, give the drugs to people who should not be using them or taking them. And so I like the fact that she wants to hold these executives accountable for these types of actions.
I absolutely love that. So look, I'll give you a sense of context, right? Now tens of thousands of Americans die every single year based on opioid addiction. And the majority are because of legal painkillers. The minority is because of heroin, okay? So now tens of thousands of people die over it. And we have memos from the opioid companies saying, we know it's gonna get people hooked. Then in their marketing, they say, don't worry, this is not addictive. So that's a lie that they know is going to get people killed. All those people die, they never go to jail. They make billions upon billions of dollars, but don't worry, they give to the ballet and opera. So the elites love them, okay? They give to the museums. On the other hand, you smoke a joint and you're gonna go to prison. Who thinks that's fair? I'll tell you who, the elites. Because the elites cannot imagine ever putting a beloved executive in prison. Because they immediately go, I mean, that's not fair. I mean, he's just running a company, and if the company winds up getting tens of thousands of people killed, but he's running a company. I go to cocktail parties with him, I see him in the Hamptons. That black guy who smoked a joint in Baltimore, I never see him. He looks like a criminal to me. Lock them all up. Oh God, I'm so sick of that injustice. The whole country's sick of that injustice because it's not just black guys in Baltimore. You think they care about you in the holler in West Virginia and Kentucky? They crush you daily for their beloved executives. Can you imagine, and I know it's hard to imagine in this day and age in America, a politician that actually represents the voters, that actually represents everybody and not just the rich. We haven't had it in 40, 50 years. So it seems like, really, is that even possible? Politicians who put executives in jail and release innocent people from jail, that doesn't seem possible, does it? It actually is possible because we're supposed to live in a democracy. Now, I know that in the past, the donor money has controlled everything, but in a presidential election, there's so much free media, you actually can get past the donor money. Guys, it's up to you. You vote for a progressive who's gonna seek justice and you'll get justice. If you get scared, and you vote for Biden or you vote for a corporate Democrat, first of all, they're more likely to lose. And second of all, you're never ever gonna get justice. It'll be the same guys still crushing you daily, no matter where you live in America. Let's actually go after the real villains and actually free Americans. Aren't we supposed to be for liberty? Let's vote for Warren or Sanders to actually get liberty for America.
So I highly recommend that you check out both proposals. Elizabeth Warren has been releasing her proposals on Medium, and Bernie Sanders proposed his legislation and his reforms on his website, that's berniesanders.com.
And we'll put the links down below if you're watching this later on YouTube and Facebook. Get the information for yourselves. Whatever you do, don't listen to television pundits telling you who's more electable. Actually find out the real truth.